Hello, folks. How are you doing? This is Kevin Young, of course, world record holder. Yes, Pablo, how are you doing? USA Track and Field, Georgia. I'm sitting here with Dexter McLeod, Jim Norval, and Pablo Sanchez, and we have obviously a wealth of information here. Dexter's I'm Dexter's predecessor to being the AAC chair here in Georgia. He's now the national AAC person, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, I'm the National AAC Secretary, and I have been for the last 4 years.
Okay. So I am embed upon his knowledge. I always call him on the phone, email him to get information about what my job needs to entail. Of course, we have the great race walker, um, Jim Norval. He's my buddy. What did you do for the USA Track and Field? Are you the website designer? What is one of your roles with USATF GA?
USATFGA, I've always been the race walk for the last 2 years.
How about you, Pablo?
I'm heading up the master's program right now.
Okay, so when I start to become a master's runner, I need to contact you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's about 6 months from now. I talk with you. Okay, so this particular meet today, our open meet, Dexter, it's like been all hands on deck, obviously, since yesterday. Um, what are the pros and cons of helping put on a meet like this? Cons first. You can give us some pros later.
Uh,
Cons first.
the cons is this is work. I don't know how much you guys realize what goes on behind a track meet, but I'll tell you because I've been on both sides. As an athlete, all you have to do is come out here, warm up, and compete, and go home. Not only we were out here until about 11:30 last night, making sure all the results were posted, all the results were properly ratified, when gauges were checked, that sort of thing. Luckily, we don't have to do any drug testing because we'd have been out here until 1 o'clock in the morning. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people don't really realize when it comes to the administration of a track meet.
Jim, I see you last night encouraging many of our masters runners. That particular role, you've been doing that for a number of years, or you've taken up, but you actually coached a few of those people, right?
Right. I'm a race walk coach, and we've got programs going on for youth and for masters and for open.
Didn't you do something recently with the president's wife, Michelle Obama? Did you have some sort of
Well, she has an initiative going on for obesity and diabetes for kids, and she's sponsoring a lot of different programs.
pretty instrumental in, I guess, the state of Georgia in helping us?
I worked with Fulton County to draft some grants for this purpose. There's a lot of grants available. Yeah.
Um, Pablo, our masters athletes. Anything that you've noticed different this year?
Well, since we're bringing it back to Atlanta, and we also teamed with the Atlanta Track Club to do this meet, the numbers have gone up. In the past, I think masters meets, you've typically been between 40, 60 to about 70 or 80. This meet altogether, we're going to have close to 300, 325 participants, which to us was a big improvement. And it's kind of unique to combine them, and we're able to see the open and the masters, and it's kind of tying them together as they finish their open competition, introduce them to the masters.
You know what? I noticed that, especially this year, USATF, when they were down in New Mexico, they had one championship there, indoor championship there. Then I think the next week or two, they had the Masters championships down there, and it definitely helps our former elite athletes who are transitioning into that Masters category to be highlighted and help train. So I'm definitely going to utilize your expertise as a master coach and coordinator to help me get along the way, because I have dreams of 92 and thoughts of 92 in my head, but I got the body of 2011 20 years later, and it hurts. It even hurts getting up in the morning sometimes. So, um, but so overall, we're looking to have a great day, obviously. Any more highlights you guys want to touch upon?
Actually, my expectation is we have a good hurdle field. Actually, out of the half of the entrants have already qualified for the outdoor championships, so I'm expecting somebody to at least hit the A standard. And the reason that's important is because this year we're of course getting prepared for the Outdoor World Championships that'll be in Daegu, and that'll be the predecessor to getting ready for London in the 2012 Olympics. So this could literally be the stepping stone for someone from Georgia going to the Olympic Games. And we traditionally have had a strong contingent at all of our Olympic championships, athletes from Georgia.
How is race walking in Georgia? The state of race walking.
The state of race walking is coming along very well. It's a slow grow, but we're introducing some 101 race walk clinics for master's programs. And a lot of the meets, we're running weekly clinics now at the high schools. So it's growing. It's a grassroots, but it's growing.
Well, one thing about track and field, we all know, obviously, around the world, especially here domestically, that it's definitely a volunteer sport, whether you're an official, whether you're the person out here bringing out the implements. So we would love more volunteers to come up. Go to usatrackandfieldgeorgia.org and sign up to become volunteers, please. We need more volunteers. One of the points, one of the great reasons why we're having this particular meet in which we have our open athletes and also our master athletes competing, me as AAC chair here, one of my objectives has been, which is passed upon to me from Dexter, was the fact that we need to, I guess, bridge that gap of having our emerging athletes and our master athletes communicate knowingly and knowing one another and associate themselves together holistically for our own organization here in Georgia. Dexter, would you have a few comments on that?
Sure. One of the things that we realized in doing our post-meet analysis for all of our track meets is we realized that we weren't really capitalizing on our own internal strengths. And that being, we've got a strong race walking contingent, we've got a strong masters contingent here in Georgia, and everybody knows about the open and elite contingent. So we thought it would be applicable to make sure that we could combine those strengths to have the strongest meet possible. So that's the synergist behind, the impetus behind having this meet today, is that we can have all of our strengths to combine at one time to make sure that everyone profits, if you will, from what we have together, rather than having three separate meets and then coming together and then realizing later on what we could have done. So this is gonna just lead to bigger and better things. Really, probably I envision having camps as an offshoot of this in terms of race walking, masters one-on-one, coaching with elite athletes. I can see that as well. And of course,
Supporting Clean Sports Initiative.
Clean Sports Initiative, drug education, all these things that are like part and parcel to an elite athlete's life. So they should be part and parcel to a master's and a race walker's life as well.
One of the cornerstones, definitely of track and field in the state of Georgia has been Atlanta Track Club. Am I right?
Yes, indeed.
And so we definitely have a affiliation with them here in Georgia,
Right.
especially at this particular meet, right?
I think the world in general, who doesn't know much about Atlanta Track Club, just sort of perceives it as a long distance club, and what they don't realize, I think, is that the Atlanta Track Club, they do have a competitive team. I'm in fact on their competitive team, and I've run for that team before, and so they've got a broad-based appeal to not only distance people but sprinters as well. And everybody knows about their contributions to things like the Boston Marathon, the New York Marathon, Peachtree Road Race, which is like one of the largest road races in America. And that was all started by Julia Edmonds, who's famous in the track world. So what they've done is they partnered with us, and this has really made our program, USA Track and Field Georgia, that much stronger because we've got one of the largest and strongest clubs in the nation working with us to enrich our programs.
Hey, sounds good. Would you like to have anything to say about that?
I'm just happy that race walking be part of this. We get recognized as a legitimate sport, and all these elite athletes. But that's about it.
There you have it. Few of the volunteer staff of USA Track and Field Georgia. Did you ever get a chance to talk about the those pros?
Oh, the pros.
Yeah, the pros of putting on a meet like
the
this.
pros of putting on a meet like this. Well, here's
you being on the national staff, you've seen a lot
Mhm.
in terms of both domestic meets, international meets. So to be honest with you, for us having you here on staff with us is a perfect thing, you know, for us to learn the ropes of what we need to know nationally. So
Right.
you're a wealth of information for us, but pro-wise.
And I will say one thing. Here's the difference between our meet and, let's say, a meet on what we refer to as a national level. I'll take the Texas relay as an example. Our meet is not so big that we can't incorporate developmental meets. And the reason that's important is because you don't get to this level without having gone through the developmental program. On the national level, USA Track and Field has made an intensive study, and they realized that come through the Junior Olympic program. So by our having a developmental meet incorporated with this meet, we are actually contributing to the Olympic movement. So that's why meets like this are important. And so this is on actually the national level's radar, because as this meet gets more and more entrenched, we'll become eligible for grants from USA Track and grants for having youth run with us. And in fact, we do have some now. Juniors, in fact, we have some running with the open meets, open and masters today. And all that does, that gives them more experience, so that when they do go to a junior national championship or an open national championship, it won't be their first time realizing how the program works. That's the important part. The second part to this is when we do this, we're actually setting the blueprint for other associations. I don't know if you guys realize this, but no other association does a meet like this. They USA Track and Field mandates that every association has championships,
Right.
but the truth is, if they're not as large as the Georgia Association, for example, their meet isn't going to be as successful simply because they don't have the financial backing behind it. And they don't have the athlete support behind it as well, which is most important. So what we're doing is we're actually creating a blueprint, a template, so that we can get our neighboring associations like Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, for example, and tell them how to have a meet like this.
Right.
So what can happen after this is we can have a series of meets, a Grand Prix, for example, and we'll be the grandfather of that.
Okay, great. Well, totally appreciate you guys' contribution to USA Track and Field Georgia. We'll see you later on in the day, probably working under this heated, hot sun. And once again, we thank you. There you have it. We have Pablo Sanchez, Jim Norville, Dexter McLeod, and